if both of you guys team up on me, right, and not in like the hot, sexy way, but like you want to fight me, right? And
You're listening to the Art and War podcast with your hosts, Mitch and Nathan. Mitch is a former airborne infantry squad leader who now spends most of his time coaching soccer. Nathan is a professional illustrator and an avid shooter with a couple of years of Canadian military experience. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
And as soon as I record, Nathan stands up. Today, we have Pat Watson from Uncensored Tactical, a man who picks locks, trains dogs, lives on a farm and a homestead, is a former Tier 1 retard in the Coast Guard, and a former cop.
yeah.
Pat, thanks for coming on. I think this is the first time we actually introduced our Get Off the Rip.
I think so. I'm surprised. Normally we proceed our podcasts with half an hour of shit talking off the air, and then someone just hits record at a random moment.
I heard nothing incorrect in your intro, by the way. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's go back to the beginning of the Coast Guard stuff. Off the rip.
Oh God, no.
When did you decide to join the Coast Guard and why?
You know, I don't
and
tell.
Why being the operative? Join the Coast Guard of your own volition? Why would you do that? Do you hate yourself?
No, dude, it was really fucking cool. As far as if you keep the politics out of it, it was a really fucking cool job.
Yeah.
And I don't tell this story very often, but I wanted to, when I was a kid, of course, join the biggest, baddest, coolest dudes in the military. And for some reason, I thought that was maybe the Marine Corps snipers or the Army Green Berets or Rangers or something like that. Thought about all those things. And the goal for me was, not me today, but the me a couple decades ago, was I wanted to be like Dad and be a policeman. I also wanted to do the military stuff. And long story short, a case was laid in front of me, which was, dude, if you do want to be a cop, police departments don't give a fuck if you're a fucking sniper. They care if you're going to be a liability and if you're able to think and solve problems and if you can deal with people without shooting them. So the case was laid that the Coast Guard has a really good law enforcement program. Again, politics aside. So I made that decision with the intent to do a few years, have some fun, get some good experience, and then make myself marketable to be a local policeman. There you go. Wrapped up in a little box for you. All done.
Oh, that makes sense.
Well, just so you know, we're not going to end that there. I'm going to keep asking you about it.
Well, that was a good podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
That was a good
all
podcast
right.
there.
Yeah, Pat, if you want to show yourself a little bit, our sponsors this week are Advanced Warfighting Solutions.
So I think with you joined because you wanted marketable experiences. I joined, that was part of the reason as well, and I think we have some overlap there. But you didn't just join the Coast Guard and go, like beach patrol for people on a lake, or I don't even know if Coast Guard does that. You didn't join the Coast Guard and do, like the basic military job that is 95% of all jobs in the military. You joined the Coast Guard and you were those people that we see knocking on those submarine doors and busting people for drugs and doing the high speed cool guy shit. Was that always the intent when you joined, or was it how did that work?
Yeah, so part of the case that was laid before me was my old man was a cop, and he took me to his chief of police and sat me down in the chief's office and walked out of the room. And the chief was like, listen, little Pat, I was a Marine myself, and now I'm a chief of police for this city. And he's like, and I would rather hire someone from the Coast Guard than a Marine Corps person, because we don't care how good of a sniper or a shooter or a killer you are. We deal with the public every day. We need to be smart enough to figure out laws and codes and policies. And you need to be able to interact with people without killing them. And I thought, oh, damn, that does make sense. And then I was introduced to someone that was on some of the Coast Guard teams way back in the, mid 80s, early 90s. And they were jumping out of helicopters. They were on task force with DEA, FBI, all those dudes, some CIA. And they were crawling through the jungles of Colombia and flying through in helicopters and dropping grenades into cocaine fields. And I was like, holy shit, the Coast Guard does that? And I did a lot of research and I found out, yeah, they do some cool shit. So I joined with the intention of making it onto one of those specialized teams. And I did. And bro, it was, it is so easy to make fun of the Coast Guard. But some of those dudes are very fucking high speed. They're very sharp. They're very professional. They are way overtrained. And they do actually get quite a bit of real world experience doing some pretty dangerous things in some pretty dangerous places. So that stuff was really unique. It was really cool. And yeah, that was the goal. I wanted to do some cool guy shit. But it wasn't, if I had wanted to only be in the military, I probably wouldn't have done that route. I would have done a different service. But like I said, the goal was to do law enforcement and to do some cool guy stuff. So they did a little bit of both. And not a lot of people know about those things, but I don't know. Does that answer some of your question?
It does. So I've obviously been a big fan of Pat Watson even before I was anything relevant within the community. And I remember hearing stories about you talking about your time in the Coast Guard, dealing with the bureaucracy of the government and the military and the Coast Guard, and then even joining law enforcement after having experienced it and having certain beliefs about them. When was the moment when you realized that it was a very flawed, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, did you gradually come to the sense that the organization that you were a part of and the bureaucracy of it was flawed, or were you immediately like, no, this entire thing is just fucking stupid?
Oh God. I you know what I asked myself before this started? I thought, how long can I
Kind
go?
of a loaded question.
How long can I go before I have to answer that question and go down that road? So
We're going down.
What do we got? Like 3 minutes, 4 minutes? All right.
We're at 6 minutes, and this is a little faster than usual.
Yeah.
I will make a quick moment to say I actually don't really make fun of the Coast Guard. There's a lot of fucking serious dudes
I make fun
there.
of the Coast Guard.
Remember Chris Costa? No, we talked about him last
Never
time.
met him. I have nothing against him. I don't know him. Okay. So nails in the coffin, right? There were a lot. Fuck. God damn it. Okay. I'm so mad. I'm so mad right now. I wanted to at least ease into it. But let's upset a lot of people and let's scare some people away. Ready? Yep. I think that everyone is born an anarchist. And so if people are afraid right now,
just fucking getting right to it.
If you're a little afraid right now, I have some information for you to kind of ease your fears. Anarchist does not mean what the media tells you that it means. And if you remember ever being lied to by the media, then hopefully you can get on the same page as me, or at least in a close chapter. No book puns intended. So, if anarchism has at the root of it that people want to be happy, they want to be left alone, they want to build communities, and they do want bad people to face justice, and they do not want people to be victimized. It's got to start from that place. So everything I say about my politics and my views on government, and I don't talk, quote, politics. I think that's maybe defined as red versus blue or senator versus congressman. So I don't talk politics. I talk human interaction and I talk government and how government works. I don't give a fuck what side of the argument you think you're on. So I think that everyone's born an anarchist, meaning you're dropped into this little world and you are immediately interacting with other humans, and you have your parents to interact with you. And you have other children that you interact with, and you choose to share or you choose not to share. And your parents will help you guide those decisions. And then you get older, and I think the brainwashing starts very young, where you're forced to sit in a chair at a desk at a largely unhuman and unnatural state, where if you don't follow these weird, stupid, inhuman rules, then you're a bad person, right? We all know the story of this kid won't stay in their seat at school, so let's dope them up with drugs, and let's have the teacher tell the parents that you have a bad child. And there are lots and lots of stories out there about children that do terrible in school, and it just turns out that school's not for them, but they are great at other really cool things, and they can create a lot of value. So I think that the anarchism is beaten out of everybody, largely through propaganda. God, this sounds great, right? But I also think that adults in this country act like anarchists when it comes to everything except for government. So if you want to trade with your neighbor, it's nobody's fucking business. You want to date somebody, it's nobody's fucking business. You want to go somewhere and travel somewhere, it's nobody's fucking business. So that's all anarchism. Until someone says a word that triggers you and you go, well, I support having a third party bring violence to you because you're doing something that I don't like, even though you're not victimizing anybody. So that's the rub. Great, guys, 10 minutes, and I probably lost half of your audience.
No, you didn't.
I don't know. I feel like they're pretty used to this at this point. We'd normally just, get a little drunk before yelling about it. I think this will come up in a lot of our episodes.
Cheers. I'm gonna drink.
Just kind of fucking drop the bombshell. Yeah, me too. You know what? I got a lemon White Claw here.
I'm gonna drink just a lot more whiskey right now. Mm.
Before you start back up,
Oh.
I know you mentioned that you didn't want to scare the audience. So
Just immediately gets into politics.
So before we let Pat continue and answer why or when the nails in the coffin were for the military and bureaucracy for him, I highly, highly, highly recommend not only his podcast, but if you go back, when did you record this episode? Years ago. You know what I'm going to say. The What Makes a Government a Government.
What Makes a Government? That's my number one most downloaded episode, right behind, I think, maybe the Ed's Manifesto one and maybe the Boogaloo one, which interesting, huh?
The Witch Manifesto one?
The
Ed's Manifesto.
What Makes a Podcast or the What Makes a Government episode is probably the number one podcast episode I send out to anyone anytime they talk to me about bureaucracy. And that's because you are such a well-spoken individual that I don't think people will immediately hear what you are saying and turn away from it. And I don't think people are going to turn away from this episode. I think they're going to be interested and at least respect how you present your information, because I certainly do. And I know my audience and
me too.
Our audience certainly will too. So please don't feel like you're scaring anybody off. Get angry, get deep down into it, and I'm going to keep pushing those buttons and making you angrier and angrier as you go.
Thanks, asshole. So honestly, there's also 2 other episodes that are super high downloads, which is, so you have What Makes a Government a Government. We have the Island Tests episode, and then we have Scalability and Reciprocity of Liberty, I think is the title. So the 3 of those are the ones that a lot of fucking people, they email me and they DM me and they go, holy shit, I had no idea. So those are my fucking favorite to send to people.
I'm going to have to check those out. I've listened to a couple episodes of your podcast, but I haven't really deep dived yet. For someone who makes a podcast kind of like quasi for a living now, I guess, I'm not very good at listening to podcasts. But I've heard a couple episodes and I quite enjoy them.
And back to Pat Watson.
I'm honored. Thank you. What else do you want? But the nails in the coffin? Yeah, there's about 1,000 of them.
Well,
so no, I don't have one final. Sure.
We've done like 2 hours of a podcast in 10 minutes. Please.
Yeah. Well, I want to know, like, was it gradual? Was it immediate? Was it all at once? Like, when did this start to happen for you?
Honestly, I think, like I said earlier, I think it starts when you're a kid. And I grew up in a house where the rule was bad people did bad things. And if they did something against the law, they should have known better. And Dad's a policeman. That means he's right. Because how the hell could Dad be wrong? Right? And he works for the government, who's the good guys. So if you commit a crime, you're an idiot and you're wrong. So that starts as a kid. But then there were a lot of situations where my dad solved problems off duty, uniquely because he had a badge in his pocket. And of course, as a kid, when you ask questions, you get the answer that is, well, of course, Mom and Dad will rationalize that in any way possible to, an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. But I had a lot of questions, which was, when I grow up, I have to be a cop, because otherwise, if I want to solve these problems and I don't have a badge hidden in my pocket, I could get in trouble, or I won't be allowed to do the things that an off-duty cop can do. So I knew very young that there was a class system in this country. And I didn't have the language to explain that, but I knew different people had different rights. And of course, when I was a kid, I thought, why don't I want to be the one with more rights? Of course. Duh. So it started very young. Thank you, doctor.
So you would say, just from kind of being raised and having a perspective of a law enforcement family, because I think that's not necessarily unique to you, but I grew up in a law enforcement family home as well, where my stepfather was a sheriff, my mom's a probation officer, my grandfather was a local judge, my uncle is still the New York State Police Department defense attorney, and I grew up very conservative, and I grew up very, no one is above the law, even though I knew there were some things law enforcement could get away with. For example, not wearing a seatbelt, speeding. certain things like that. I saw my stepfather and my mother getting away with a lot, but I never thought to myself, hey, they're above the law. It was just, hey, there's probably a reason behind
Yeah,
this I
it's a
don't
perk.
understand it, and I'm not going to think about it. Maybe it's a perk. But I think that's kind of why it's unique to me to hear you have that experience, because I grew up in a similar law enforcement family, and I had a very, I would say, stereotypical childhood and perspective that I think a lot of people growing up in law enforcement families have.
That actually kind of makes sense. That similarly, my dad was military. My family had almost everyone, both my mom and my dad, worked for the government. There was kind of bureaucracy on all sides, and I was told from a very young age that because of this we can get away with this, because of that you're entitled to this. And I find it funny that so many people we've talked to kind of had the same story, and oftentimes that story involved seeing the kind of class system and doing one of two things: one, being abhorred by it, or two, I want part of that. And when you're young, it's really, really easy to do the second one.
But even though you had this perspective growing up, you still joined it because you saw the benefits of it, and you said, okay, I want the experience. And what was your mindset? I want to be above the law in some aspects, as my parents were.
No. So honestly,
Okay.
honest to God, I do remember as a kid going, if I'm going to be an adult and a parent, the best way for me to care for my kids is solving problems on duty and off duty because of my status in ways that other people can't. I literally remember that thought as a child. And it didn't wreck me or ruin me, and I'm not crying on a therapist couch, but I honest to God remember that exact phrase going through my head.
That's a really that's a really, I don't know if educated is the right word. That is a very interesting perspective for a child to have, and an interesting thought process, I think, for a child to have, because there's levels.
Think
to
about
that.
this. So Dad was he was a bigwig. He climbed the ladder and he climbed it fast, and he was like, God damn it! How did you suck me into this stupid conversation, you idiots?
Hey, people like personality, Pat.
Yeah.
We talked about this, I think, last night, where you said some of your more popular episodes are getting to know you. I want to get to know you more, even though we hung out for 3 or 4 days. We're gonna get to know Pat Watson.
Yeah, you want to talk dog stuff instead? Let's do that.
No. We'll get to the dog stuff. We got another hour and 40
Pat,
minutes.
What's your deepest
BR.
fear? What do you see when you close your eyes at night?
BR, if you're listening, please, BR, I would like
Mm-hmm.
you to please highlight right now that I am saying the following under duress. So let me give you one short story that really happened.
Okay.
So my mom was doing her job, which was not law enforcement, and she was out in public going from business to business doing bureaucratic things, and someone was upset with her. I don't know if it was related to her work or they just got wild hair in their ass, but someone was following my mom very aggressively and driving like an idiot and like swearing and middle finger out the window and all that shit. So this is in the late 90s, early 2000s. And my old man gets a call from my mom, and she's like in tears, and she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to stop the truck, but this crazy guy's following me and screaming at me. So my dad jumps in the car and he drives, and I think at the time he might have had an undercover car. So he jumps in, he turns the sirens on, he runs across town, and he's talking to my mom on the way, and she's like, I'm turning here, I'm going there. Or oh no, he didn't. I remember very specifically. He was on he was serving a warrant, so it was him and a bunch of legitimately steroided up SWAT cops, and they had like the battering rams and the machine guns hanging on their chest, and they had just done an entry on someone's home. And so my dad told my mom to drive to the location he was at. So this crazy guy follows my mom. My mom parks, the guy parks, and my dad and all of his, testosterone steroided up machine gun toting buddies walked up to the guy's truck, and my dad pulls him out of the truck in front of his kid, and he had, probably a not very nice discussion with the guy. And so mom was safe and protected. Dad did the right thing because that was a bad guy and dad's a good guy. And that stuck with me for a long time. And I thought, holy shit, that problem solving ability, not everybody has that. If you did that, you'd be in fucking jail. So of course, as a kid, I wanted perks, but I also knew that not everybody gets those perks. And it took me a long time to understand some of the theory and the language. And I really had to work with that clay to kind of mold it into a cohesive kind of morals system. It took a long time, but I did have that input, which was the scales weren't exactly weighed even.
So that is something that I think would change any kid's perspective on his or her future. Because as a kid, you are obviously very impressionable, and you think that your parents are always, always right. At least I did kind of growing up. I was like, yep, mom and dad are good people. They're the good guys. And I still have a good relationship with my family. But, obviously everybody is flawed, even your own parents. And when you come to see that, maybe not as a flaw, but as a perk, when you get older, those are the type of things that stay with you. And when you really break them down and criticize them, maybe you start to see things that you didn't see when you were a kid. Or maybe you just start to think about things that you kind of had a thought about, but you brush it off because at the time you're like, mom and dad are good people. It's fine. So with all these experiences, with this unique perspective, you join the Coast Guard. You do some badass shit. I saw a picture of you. Was it on the coast of Somalia? Did Somalia even have a coast?
Yeah, I did the
Somali pirates.
They're if Africa is like a big dumb shaped gun, they are the hammer in the back.
Got it.
On the right side of the country, though.
So you joined the Coast Guard. You did some high speed shit. You did some good stuff. You experienced a lot of bureaucracy. And I remember hearing you tell a story specifically about your body armor and kind of when you saw where things could be improved and you found a solution. The problem was, what you say, people were drowning because their body armor and kits were too heavy. Am I quoting that correctly?
Yeah.
Roughly. That's terrible.
Yeah, for conversation's sake, yeah, it's close enough.
Okay. And you found the solution. You found body armor that had the same level of protection, but it was also buoyant and floated. And you said, hey, this will solve a problem. Here you go, leadership. Here is the solution to this very big problem. Let's make it happen. And they essentially said no.
They essentially just laughed it off.
Yeah. So I think a lot of us see things like this, and especially as we get higher ranking in the military, we start to have this sense that we had when we joined, which was, hey, I want to join to make it better, and I want to join to help improve and do all these good things. You have the best intentions for the most part. Most people do when you join. However, the crushing reality becomes, there's no fucking way in hell you're going to be able to actually make these changes and make it a better organization. I realized that when I was an NCO. When did you, like, really hard terms, you were like, you know what? I've tried again. This is bullshit. I'm done. When was that for you?
I signed up to do 6 years of active duty initially, and most of that time was spent at the counter drug unit. We also did the Somali piracy stuff. That whole fucking time, I had a glass ceiling above my head. There were so many things to fix and to make better. And we were, as far as Coast Guard goes, we were the tippy top of the spear. We had a quote-unquote counterterrorism unit while I was in, but they were very new. And at the time that I was still in, they never had a mission. So they trained quite a bit, but we were the tip of the spear. And I thought, wow, we're the best that we have to offer, and we can't solve these fucking problems? Like, just, long story short, just a bunch of stupid shit that everyone wanted to make better, and everyone was denied the ability to make any forward motion with changes. So I read a lot. I wrote a lot. I wrote thousands and thousands of pages on deployment that are just lost to the ether. I always brought a laptop, and I fucking typed for hours and hours and hours on deployment. And so many of these patterns just kept pouring out of my fingers into my laptop. And book number 2, Fuck Bureaucracy, is the title. That is not a book that
Yes.
I wrote it in one night, but that is not a book that took one night to write. Fuck, let me take another drink on my whiskey. Hold on. Sorry.
No worries.
It's quite a hell of a bargain value at $25 for the paperback for a book that took over a decade to compose. So once the patterns start emerging, once you realize what the machine is, only then can you really make an informed decision about how you're going to react to it. So I knew what it was when I got out. I knew that there was no fixing it. I've said it recently on either someone else's show or mine, but for weeks and weeks and weeks, I knew I was getting out, and I knew that my commanding officer of my drug task force unit, whatever, I knew that he was going to have me into his office, and he was going to sit me down and say, "Hey, you're getting out of the military. Well, what'd you think about this unit? We'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can improve." And I knew he was going to ask me that, and it kept me awake at night. And I thought, how am I going to tell him all the problems? I don't have enough time. And then I was like, well, if I tell him the solutions, he's probably not going to fix it. And then I thought, well, then why would I put in the effort to call him out on his bullshit and say how stupid this fucking whole machine is? And so I just kept going down that path. And one day he called me in. He said, "How's everything going?" And I said, "It's going great." And he said, "You getting out?" I said, "Yep." He said, "All right, any questions?" I said, "Nope." He said, "See you later." I said, "See you later." And I'm really glad that I went that route, because now I'm much, much, much happier.
Have you ever considered sending him a copy of your book now?
No. Why?
Hey, sir, remember that conversation?
No, God, no.
This is what
Remember
I was
me?
actually thinking.
Fuck no. If you think that guy remembers me, I cheers.
How's it going, people? This is BR here, the producer of the Art and War podcast, to tell you about the Lads Patreon. Not only do we want to continue improving the quality of what we can do both here on the show and on Instagram, but we also want to elevate what we can do as a team. We are looking at pursuing some life-changing goals like acquiring property together and expanding what we can do massively in the future. It's a lofty goal, but one we want to include our audience in to let you know where your greatly appreciated support is going. But what's in it for you? Our Patreon subscribers enjoy 5 different tiers of exclusive perks, ranging from all of the content the lads would post on a pre-Zuckerberg Instagram, downloadable high-resolution guides, behind-the-scenes info like guest schedules, spicy memes, and at our highest tier, get monthly art commissions created by Nathan himself. You can find our Patreon via the link in this episode's description, or in the Seaburn Art Page's bio on Instagram.
Now let's get back to Pat Watson.
So Pat gets angry for good reasons. I've listened to your podcast for, like 2 years now, and I hear little stories and some episodes about all the stuff that you've experienced, and I kind of relate it similarly to things that I have experienced, just not at such a high tier level.
Every time you say that, I can't tell if you're fucking with me or if you're being honest.
I'm doing a bit of both. Because
okay, that's fair. I'll take it.
You were tier 1, and I know it bothers you, so now I make it a point of emphasis every time we talk to mention it.
I thought so. Okay.
So you have these experiences, you have these beliefs, you get out of the military, and you still go with the plan to become a cop. I love hearing Pat stories about being a cop. You talked about one on your podcast before where you kind of went into depth and explained, what happens when a call gets, dispatch calls you.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah, TikTok.
Yep, it's great. I kind of already knew it just because my family grew up, but it was still so awesome to hear you explaining it, and it kind of just reaffirmed that it is same, but different everywhere across the globe, or the country at least. Mm-hmm. You get out, you decide to join law enforcement, and you still have these beliefs. Mm-hmm. I want to know why. Mm-hmm. How did you still come to that decision to do that job with the beliefs that you had after working for the government? You still were like, hey, I'm going to go be an enforcer and a cop.
Sure. So I got out of active duty the first time, and I thought, I am never fucking going back. And I had a stellar resume. I had a unbelievably clean criminal record. I had fucking one speeding ticket in my life. I did some really cool shit overseas. I had a great disciplinary file from the military. I had nothing in it. And I thought, holy shit, it is going to be so fucking easy to walk into any department I want. And then 5 or 6 or 7 departments later, I was like, holy shit, I can't pay my bills and I can't fucking get hired. So, oh, and that was a wild fucking ride. Really, the hiring process is a fucking joke. It has nothing to do with can you be a good cop. It's completely bureaucratic. So I'm struggling getting hired as a cop, and I go, listen, I'll join the fucking Coast Guard Reserves. I'll make some money over the weekend. I'll get a shitty part-time job until I can get hired as a cop, and then whatever. At this point, I was already mentally, I knew what path I was on. I knew that government was not the answer. And now, if I look back in time, I would say bureaucracy is not the answer, but I was close. So I sign up for the reserves. I get accepted. That's a whole nother fucking mess. The government is not very good at almost anything it does. I get picked up for the Coast Guard Reserves. I do a long-term deployment up in the Great Lakes. That was a lot of fun. It was nice and relaxing, and I needed that. But during that active duty deployment to the Great Lakes, I got a phone call, and an agency said, hey, you interviewed with us before, and we like you. You're hired. And I was like, fuck yeah. And they called back 5 minutes later, and they said, oh, just kidding. You're disqualified. And I was like, maybe you should have figured that out 5 minutes ago. But whatever. So
Did they say why?
yes and no. Honest to God, I'll tell you after the call. It's just, it's too much.
Yep.
So I had given up on being a cop. Number one, I didn't really want to be a cop at this point. Number two, it was just such a not that I'm unqualified or incapable, but it was a really stupid fucking process. And I'll break just for a second here to ask the audience, if you're still there. Would you start any relationship in your life with one person lying to the other and asking for the other person to be completely and fully and openly honest about the biggest mistakes of their life, to start a 20 or 30-year relationship with that person?
I know where this is going. I love it.
Anywhere in your life, does that sound normal to you?
It does not.
So I was back. I grew up in Florida, and I ended up returning there. I'm back in Florida, and I'm like, you know what? I didn't really want to be a cop in the fucking first place. The process is stupid. Bureaucracy is stupid. Government's fucking stupid. And I was completely at peace with that. And the phone rings, and an agency said, we're moving you to round 3. It's the last round, and we'd like to hire you. And I was like, you know what? I'll show up, but I don't really give a shit. So I show up, and I had both passed and failed several psychologicals and lie detector tests from police agencies, all with the same answers. So I show up to this agency, and I sit down for their lie detector, and they're like, all right, answer this, answer that, answer this, answer that. And I do, and I'm bored. And so I could do a whole fucking 6 hours on the lie detector. It's not what you think it is, I promise. So the guy does exactly as he's trained to do. And he goes, well, the machine's acting funny, and it's not picking up your answers really well about this stuff and that stuff. Is there anything you want to tell me? And I looked at him, and I laughed, and I said, no. And he's like, I was like, run it again. I don't care. He's like, okay. And he runs it, and he goes, well, the machine's not picking up your answers really good. I said, I don't care. Run it again. I'll be here all day. And he looks at me, and he goes, okay, fine. He goes, you're hired. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Or I think he said, I'm moving forward. So literally the next day, I talked to the shrink, and I had failed with one shrink. And I meet with this shrink, and I walked into the room, and he's like, hey, tell me about yourself. And I do. And we talk for like 5-10 minutes, and he's like, all right, you seem good to me. See you later. And I'm like, it's been months and months and months, and I've both passed and failed all these stupid fucking tests, all with the same answers, all with the same background. And I'm like, this is exactly as stupid as I predicted. And now that I've given up, I'm hired? This is fucking stupid. So I'm like, well, I have to eat food. Right? I have to put food on the table. I'm starving. So this is actually one of the biggest incentives for a lot of people that are, whether, military, cops, first responders, whatever. You still have to eat. So I said, all right, well, I'll take the job. At this point, I'm definitely an anarchist. I know what the word is. I know what it means. I know that government is not the answer. And I'm expecting police work to be like, okay-ish, but largely corrupted. So I go, I swear to the Constitution, which is, you asked me to fucking come on the show, motherfucker. So I'm just going to keep being myself. Here we go. So I stand in the room and
please.
I raise my hand and I swear to the Constitution, which is something you do. It's not something you have to believe in or carry out as a task. So you say the thing just to get hired. And it started again. It was fucking bureaucracy this, bureaucracy that. Hey, here's your uniform and your equipment. And they go, sign this page that says you've received all your gear. And I'm like, I didn't even open the box yet. I don't know what's in it. And they were like, just sign it and then see what's in it. And if there's a problem, come back. And I'm like, that's a government form. I don't know if that's exactly a felony, but it's certainly not good. So yeah, sure, I'll sign it. That's a great first act as a public servant, to sign something that is completely false, and also puts me in a bad position if I do sign it and there is something wrong and I have to come back and say, I signed for it saying I received it, but you didn't really give it to me. Looks great, right? That's every single bureaucracy works this way. So I do the thing. I get in a little police car. I do my training. It's a mess. So I get out on the street. I'm doing my own thing. And I'm like, all right, my old man is not an idiot. He did tell me a couple things that were really fucking smart. And he said, the good news is, different than the military, at least when you're a local police officer, when you get in your squad car, you are the CEO of that squad car. You handle your calls how you want to handle them. You make arrests when you want to. You don't when you don't want to. You do or don't get to write tickets however you please. And I was like, that sounds slightly better than military stuff. So I did the job. I tried my very best to not bring good people to jail. And I tried my very best to bring actual bad people to jail. But what comes with that is not a very good incentive set if you want to make money for a living and have a career. You kind of have to embrace the culture to promote. Have I lost anyone yet?
No. Kiss-assery is a huge thing that is, I think, relevant not just in government work, but kind of everywhere. But it is definitely more relevant in government work and police work, I think, than anywhere else, because it is set up in a way to where if you do not please your boss, whether you're doing the right or wrong thing, it doesn't matter. If you do not please your boss, then the entire organization, unit, department, whatever word you want to use for it, is going to be against you, because if they're not, they get put in the same box as you are, and that affects if they progress or not.
We've gotten to it a couple of times. Government structures have a habit of promoting people because they're shitbags to get them out of that position.
Yeah, all bureaucracy does that, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to just emphasize with some of your points. Recently, I'm going through the medical retirement process with the military, or med board process. And you had to talk to a shrink. I had to talk to a shrink too. And I have never talked to this woman before. It was a Zoom call. And I think she was in California, I believe. She called me. She asked me like 10 questions. It was less than a 3-minute phone call. And she's like, okay, I'm diagnosing you with PTSD. And I'm like, I don't think I have PTSD. I said that out loud to her. I'm like, I don't think I have PTSD. I have hypervigilance. I can definitely recognize, that there are some social anxieties, but I don't think I have PTSD. I don't really have nightmares. I mean, every so often, I think I have the average amount of nightmares that any other human will. I
got a good story about that, but continue.
Yep. I don't have, I don't wake up and I'm like beating the shit out of my wife or something. Like you just diagnosed me with PTSD in a 3-minute conversation. She's like, yep, I'm very confident in this diagnosis. And she said her goodbyes and hung up. And I'm like, they are so quick to just, hey, this is an easy label to put on somebody that's in the military. I probably don't want to do my job today, so I'm just going to put this on them, end the call, and go do whatever. And then one more point of emphasis that I do want to bring up. You brought up the signing for equipment in law enforcement. They gave you the box. It is the same thing in the Army when it comes to your CIF issue. So I think the Marine Corps has a different name for it. I'm pretty sure all the branches have a different name for it, but pretty much where you get all of your equipment, all your uniforms, your rucksack, all that shit. When you're going through, especially as a private, if you have a good leader,
Mhm.
they'll be like, hey, dickhead, they're going to tell you to just sign for it. Don't fucking listen to them. Make sure you visibly see everything because there's so much shit being thrown at you at once. And these people are kind of fucking stupid that work there. You want to make sure that you're signing for what you actually have. But what ends up happening is that leader is like, nah, fuck this 150 person long line. I'm going to go up to the front. I'm going to take the time to do my shit. And then all of a sudden, we need to hurry the fuck up and get through this line. So I'm going to rush everybody. And then even the people at
Mhm.
CF are like, hey, here's all this shit. It's all there. Do you got it? Here, sign for it. And you're given like 3 pages of shit. And you're like, you just handed all of this shit to me, and I see bags. That's all I see. I see bags filled with shit. But it's hurry the fuck up and sign it so we can get going. Oh, you want to be a problem? All right, well, lunge with the bags over your head. Wall squat with the bags over your head. You want to continue to be a problem? No? Okay, get the fuck on the bus. And like you said, it puts you
Mhm.
in a spot where if down the road you're in a field problem and somebody's like, hey, where's your Gore-Tex top and bottom? Everybody needs to be dress right dress. We're all wearing that. Hey, I didn't get issued that at CIF. What do you mean? On your clothing record, it says you did. Well, you
Mhm.
forced me to sign it, and now I'm here without it. And then it just turns into this snowball effect of, well, now this person's a shitbag. They didn't bring their shit out there. They're a problem with signing for equipment. And the whole thing is just a fucking disaster. Continue, Pat. Those are my 2 points of emphasis.
Don't you have a Fortress canine dog?
I do have a Fortress Canine dog, and I have that dog because of you. But when did you get
Hey.
involved with Fortress Canine? When did that relationship become a thing? Because I remember you were an affiliate for them on the podcast, and that's how I
Mhm.
started to hear about Joel. I looked into Fortress Canine, and I'm like, this is what I've been looking for over
Dude.
a year and a half now. I've been thinking about this thing, and I'm like, man, this thing
Mhm.
would really help me, and I know it would really help me, but I don't know the right people to trust to get me the right thing because it's a very specific thing. It's a very specific thing
Yes.
that I knew I needed. There's a lot of protection dogs and protection dog companies out there, but when I looked into them, I'm like, this seems more like just a very high trained guard dog, and I need something more than a highly trained guard dog. I need a well trained family pet that is also primary job is to help me and to for me to have the confidence that that dog can help me with my very specific needs. So when I heard you talking about it, I looked into them, and what really captivated me was their philosophy and
Oh
how
God.
they train. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I know you're are you a branch of them now? Is that what you would be considered?
I operate a franchise of Fortress Canine. On
Okay,
Instagram, we are at Canine Academy TX. No spaces.
got it. So how did you even let's go back to the affiliate. How did you become an affiliate for them?
Yeah. So I was several episodes into my podcast, and I realized I hadn't covered dog work yet. I remember on Jack Spirko's podcast, he had a canine guy on a couple times. So I went through his history. I found an old email address. I emailed the guy, and luckily I got in touch with him. And he was like, "Bro, I have a new business name, so I'm not the former business, but I'm still the same person with the same training." So I emailed him back, and I'm like, "Awesome. Can I have you on my podcast?" And he's like, "Absolutely." So I get him on my podcast, and he's like, "Yeah, well, I used to be out of Alaska, but now I moved across the country, and now I train out of Orlando, Florida." And I'm like, "Dude, that is 2 hours from me." And he's like, "Come on out to the field." And I'm like, okay." So I had a partner at the time. So her and I, the next morning, drove out to see him at the field. I think I'm remembering that correctly, but it was really quickly after that interview. So we made plans. We drove 2 hours out to Orlando, and I walked out onto his training field. And I I had lap dogs as a kid, but I'm not what you would call a dog person. Certainly not a dog trainer or security dog person. How did I get involved with the dogs? Well, So since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a canine cop, and then I became a cop, and I realized it was a very adult decision that I saw. I like dogs, and I like working dogs, but I don't love the way, at least the mission or the daily operations of how police canines work. So I decided not to go that route. In the military, when I got to our drug task or drug unit, there was a canine office at the end of the hall in our building, and they were being disbanded. I was like, well, fuck, I missed that too. So in both of my law enforcement careers, one with the Coast Guard, one with local police, canine work wasn't right for me, or it wasn't the right time. So I got out. When I was podcasting, I realized several episodes into my podcast, I'm like, fuck, I haven't covered dog stuff yet. So through Jack Spirko, who's a big time mentor of mine, I listened to him for about a decade. Lots of good lessons. He interviewed a canine guy, Joel of Fortress Canine, and I found him through a different name, and I found him through an old email address, and then I emailed him, and he's like, hey, yeah, well, I've changed the business, I changed the name, and I moved.
One of my favorite memories of being there with you and him. It's gonna sound a little weird. I think it was the last day we were there. We did an introduction to scent work, and I fucked up. I wasn't handling the lead properly, and Joel just fucking snapped at me. And I deserved. I mean, yeah, I deserved it. And I remember being, I don't want to say overwhelmed. There was a lot of information at once, and I'm not using this as an excuse either. I should know how to be a better learner. There was a lot of shit going on there. And then I don't want to say I was going through the motions, because I was doing my best to be as mentally and physically there as I could. I started to drift and was more focused on her, Athena, as opposed to everything that he was saying, and being sure to absorb what because what he tells you is what you need to fucking do. And there's obvious implications that if you don't, it's not going to work, and it's a waste of time, and it's humid as fuck, and we're running around through, like shin high water and little, what'd you call it? A marsh? Was it a marsh back there, I guess? Yeah. And he snapped at me. And for a second, I was like, I don't know why. For like a second, I got angry. And then I'm like, wait, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, I'm the retard here. Like, I am the one that is 110% in the wrong. And that's one of the best memories that I have there, which is weird.
Okay.
All right. So,
part 3.
Yep. Part 3. Apologies to anybody listening if there's like random cuts and chops. We had some bad audio problems on our end, and now Pat's coming in and using what he uses to record podcasts to save the day.
Yeah.
What we were talking about Fortress Canine, and
we're talking about you fucking up a little bit.
Yeah, me fucking up a little bit. I fucked up a couple times when I'm there. I remember now, like I couldn't remember to close the fucking gate. Like, such a simple thing. And I remember vividly thinking, after a culmination of a couple things, I remember vividly thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I probably look like a fucking retard to these two people who I thoroughly enjoy, who I get incredible value from. I probably look like a fucking retard. Because then I'm like, I can't close a fucking gate. I can't listen to simple instructions about handling a lead. And I know I was just being a little hard on myself, I think, but there was a lot of really good moments. And one of them, like I said, the best moment was when Joe kind of snapped at me, because I appreciated it. Like 30 seconds after it happened, I was like, he's just trying to teach me the right way to do it. I fucked it up the first time, and we're literally running around in this fucking swamp in his backyard. Like it's hot, it's humid, it's exhausting. It's like fucking one. We had just spent all morning. Was that a morning? No, we didn't do bite work that morning. We did, was it stability? I think stability or agility. I can't remember.
I think we did bite work every day, didn't we? Come on, sweetheart.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was kind of like the stationary bite work where it was just me, you, Arrow, and Athena. And it wasn't like deploying and recalling. But there were so many good things about just that whole kind of experience. One, it was unique and it was intense. It was very intense off the rip, and I think that's because Joel consolidated it so much for me because I had such a small window. Because my wife was due. My wife was due very, very shortly after, and we were kind of afraid that she was going to pop early, but she didn't. But Joel was very kind enough to consolidate. What is it normally, a week?
Yeah, it's usually a week. So what Fortress Canine does, and what I do, I guess by extension, is if you want to buy a basic puppy, we sell you a basic puppy and we're done. We recommend that you train with us, but of course, if you buy a basic puppy with a specific level of training, which is usually 0 for basic puppies, it's not 0, but it's close to it. Here's your dog. Have a good day. If you're buying a protection dog from us, it's a lot more expensive, and it is, I think it is more dangerous than buying a gun. If you buy a gun and you put it in the corner, it will never shoot anybody. If you buy a protection dog and you put it in the corner and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, it could be trouble for you or your family or anyone walking down the street. So yes, when you buy a protection dog from Fortress Canine, we will not give you your dog until you show up and you prove that you can handle your dog, and we will help you. But if you show up and you're a fucking idiot, we cancel your contract and we keep the dog and we sell it to somebody else.
I felt like I was very close to. I felt like I was being very close to being considered a fucking idiot.
No,
I don't know.
You were learning. You were not an idiot.
And here, I'm not going to make excuses for myself because I should know how to receive training better than what I displayed while I was out there. You
were fine.
I hold myself to a higher standard than what actually happened. But what I greatly appreciated was how it was not only condensed for me, and condensed training already becomes intense in anything, when you're dealing with dangerous, I don't want to say dangerous because I don't think Athena is.
Mitch.
Your
audio cut.
Oh, I'm back. I couldn't.
You're back.
Yeah, no, your audio cut entirely, which you looked so happy talking there. So it's very sad. Like you had a full on grin and everything, but
it almost sounds like we do this for a living. All three of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yet we can't figure out how to record.
Move right from one broken thing right to another.
I was saying how I don't when you condense training for something that is considered lethal, which I consider Athena to be lethal if I want her to be, because I've seen the intensity that she can go at people, and I've seen the intensity. I just even in her look, after seeing and witnessing the power that she has, I do consider her to be lethal. However, the great thing about her is 99.9% of the time, she is an absolute sweetheart that sits here. She naps with me. She'll go for a walk. She'll be around people. Like I flew home with her on an airplane, crowded space. She very, very, very stable. But when that switch turns on for her, I fear for anybody that is on the other side of that. And I think that's one of the great things about what yourself and Joel are doing over there.
Yeah, I've pointed real guns at real people, and I have seen the look in their eyes. And I have also had my dog next to me and seen really fucking weird people approach me. And when they see the dog and they see me and they see that she is well behaved and obedient and capable, they fucking do an immediate 180 and they go the other way. It is so much more fucking scary and intimate and violent to be attacked by a dog than to have someone threaten to shoot you. And I know this from both sides. It's so weird. I would rather be shot than have someone send their fucking dogs on me without a bite suit on.
You got, even the dog, did it bite through the suit during bite training when I was there with you? Did it bite through it, or did it just catch you?
Me?
You got caught. You.
Oh, yeah.
You had blood drip.
I got my hand bitten. I was in a suit that was slightly too small, and I was fighting, I think, two dogs at the same time. And my hand came out, and our dogs... how do I tell this story without going nuts? Our dogs do not do what 99% of the protection dog world does. Our dogs are a little bit different in a good way. So our dogs learn specifically to fight a human, to cause damage until the problem is solved, and then they recall. So they're done with the fight. So through fighting people, if a dog bites my hand and I'm like fighting the dog and they bite my sleeve, they bite my arm, they bite my bicep, and I'm like, and they bite my hand and I go, fuck. And then they get called out because they've won that fight. They remember that shit. And they're like, ooh, I won the fight a lot faster when I bit his fucking hand. Yeah, there's something good inside that sleeve. They know that.
Oh.
And being bit on the arm sucks. It's like taking a vice grip and clamping it down to 100% as fast as you can. Yeah, it sucks. They take their jaws, they grab your arm or your bicep, and they clamp down. That's what most of the dog world does. And it sucks. And to be fair, I just had a client today that wants to buy a dog from Fortress. And I told him this. I was like, 99% of the dog world, the dog comes in, he bites high up on the bicep, he bites until he dies, and he squeezes with the back of his molars, and it really fucking hurts. And I do understand that if you have a dog that does that thing, it sucks for the bad guy. And I agree. However, if the bad guy sees you, and he sees your dog, and you tell him, you better fucking stay away or you're going to get bit, and he doesn't stay away, that tells you that bad guy is a bad fucking guy. So he's intentionally bringing the fight to you, knowing that you have a dog. And he goes into that fight, and he takes the bite. He's going to get bit. And if you have 99% of the dog world's dogs that bite you high up on the bicep and bite until they die, and they're trained to ignore any stimulus all the way up until including death, that bad guy, I don't know if people know this, but bad guys in real life, they have knives and guns and machetes and shit. So they're going to stab or slash or shoot or punch your dog or trap your dog or smash your dog's head into a post or run over your dog or something. And then when your dog is dead, they're going to come kill you. Our dogs are different. Our dogs fight humans. They don't have a one-track mind of, I'm going to run in, I'm going to bite high, I'm going to bite deep, and I'm just going to bite until I die. So our dogs, they realize, oh, if I'm biting his arm or his bicep and he punches me with the other arm, I'm going to let go and I'm going to bite that other arm. And then if they continue to get hit, our dogs will circle around behind you and bite you in the ass. They will bite you in your lats. They'll bite you in the back of your neck. They will bite your fucking head. They'll bite the back of your arm so that you can't fight them when they're biting you. And I think that's a little bit smarter than 99% of the rest of the dog world. And that
I can see Mitch just like suppressing a grin right now, just like, yes.
That is why I got involved with Fortress Canine and why I operate a franchise underneath Joel.
Yeah, I witnessed this firsthand with Athena, where I deployed her on Joel, and Joel, I tried to call her off early because I don't know if Joel was kind of giving her that confidence or if Athena was really fucking tearing at him that much. But like, I kind of looked at him and I'm like, all right, Athena, it's good. Like, I forget, what I was like, oh, let's go, let's get out of here. And Joel was like, no, let her fight. And then I see Joel swing at her with his other arm, just going for it. And it was like slow motion. And she probably saw it in much, more intensity than I did. And I see her release, duck her head while his momentum's carrying him. She just lurched forward and ended up biting kind of like the back of his forearm that went to hit her. And I remember at that moment, I'm like, holy fucking shit, this is the dog. And I remember hearing you guys talk about it because I had listened to his podcast. I listened to him on your podcast. I love the philosophy. I love the training philosophy. I love how they, how you folks go about stuff. And then to see it though, to see the intelligence, to see the awareness and not just have all that, but the ability to act on it and be quick enough.
Oh my God, they're fast.
It's unreal. It is unreal how smart, how quick, how intelligent, and how aware she is. And it's not just her, obviously. It's all of those dogs there. I mean, I saw how many dogs were there on the deployment day. What was it, like 7, 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 to 8, I think, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And they're all very much like that. They're all very obedient, and they all have the time of their fucking lives.
They love it. Here's a good point too that we can't miss, which is while our dogs may enjoy doing that, we build it into their brains that it is not a fucking game. We can swear on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Jesus fucking. Oh my. Yeah. Yes. Very much so. From the beginning.
So one of our philosophy points is that dogs aren't humans and humans aren't dogs. If you want to treat your dog like a human, go for it, but don't expect it to act like a dog, right? If you're giving it false stimulus of, letting it sit at the table and eat human food and you talk to it like a human, you can do whatever you want with your dog. But if you stop treating it like a dog, don't get upset when it doesn't follow dog rules. Okay. Whew. Now, with humans, if both of you guys team up on me, right, and not in like the hot, sexy way, but like you want to fight me, right? And I fight you back, and I'm like, if I'm holding my ground, right, and I'm like, oh, I got in a good punch, oh, I got in a good knee, and I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, bring it on. I could be happy and wagging my proverbial tail while I'm trying to, protect my life against you guys. But I understand that it's not a game. So in that same framework, our dogs, our fortress dogs, they understand that they might enjoy biting a bad guy, but they only do that because if they know in their brains, because we teach this into them through our training is never a fucking game. We teach it into them from when they are fucking 6 or 8 weeks old. We say, you will fight me or you will feel pain or injury or death. And every single time, consistently, our dogs may enjoy defending their handlers, but they know that it is not a game, which I love. There's so much of the sport world has taken over the defensive dog world. And Joel, of course, gets a lot of hate, and I get a little bit of it too, because we're different. But I like being different because have you seen the fucking normal, average, civilized human that watches, the news and believes it?
Oh my God. I wish I hadn't.
I think that philosophy is important because I do not want, because I'm not some, I obviously don't know everything or even 5% of what goes into training a dog like this. And I don't understand the dog training world nearly as much as you or Joel do. What I appreciate the most, though, from an outsider's perspective, is that philosophy that the dog is trained to protect you and to eliminate the threat. The dog is not trained to bite and hold on and get a perfect score for biting and holding on, or however they judge those contests. Mm-hmm. It's not what the dog is for. When I look at it in the same way that I look at purchasing gear and equipment. When I purchase gear and equipment, I do not want the thing that everybody says looks the best, feels the best, or maybe they even say it performs the best, but under robust, realistic conditions, it's not made for that. I can think of a lot of different knives, for example. There's a lot of like high-end blades that are considered high-end because they're high quality, but if you fuck it up, right, and you actually use it for something, it'll break, it'll dull, it won't be good, and it's not practical. That is what I enjoy the most about Fortress Canine and the dogs that you have. They are practical. They are realistic. It is, if this situation happens, this is what we offer as a solution. And that solution is not married around some bullshit of, yeah, look at this perfect score that they get for biting so-and-so in a contest, which I don't know how that shit works, but I have seen.
I'll give you a quick explanation. So and here's where Joel doesn't talk a lot about this, but I'll give some credit where some credit is due. If you guys were if you were the Mike Tyson of boxing, right? And you bumped into me on the street and we had to fight. As a professional boxer, you would best in the world, you would have a leg up on me. You're fast, you're strong, you know how to punch, you know how to target. That's great. Would you that's not a trick, right? Would you agree with that?
Yep.
So you're not useless as a professional ring boxer. You have a great skill that could probably benefit you. Okay, that being said, if you are fighting someone, if you're maybe not the tippy top of the world, or even if you are, if you're fighting someone with a gun, that changes things. If you're fighting someone with a knife, that changes things. If you're fighting two people, that changes things. If you're fighting someone that fights dirty, or if you get punched first and you don't expect it, that changes things. So that is where making our training as realistic as possible and asking the hard questions and being willing to do things differently, that is our value. And I gave my client today, new client, this exact scenario where I said, so there's a difference between ring and combat. If you have a ring dog, or if you have a ring person and he's a boxer and he punches you, you're probably at a disadvantage. If you have a person that's fucking really good at combat and uses weapons and fights dirty, now you're in trouble. So if you're a boxer and you expect no one to kick you in the nuts, you're at a disadvantage. So even though your skill set is high, you have huge gaping holes in your self-defense. You have a sport that is based on self-defense that you have trained to that level. Whereas we don't give a fuck what our score is. We teach our dogs to be effective. So this is the example. In 99% of the dog world, I did remember it. So here we go. In 99% of the dog world, trainers will tell their clients, send your dog to me, have your dog bite me while I'm in the bite suit. I'm going to slap your dog with this frayed bamboo stick thing to try and distract him. The dog's going to bite me until it dies, even if it's getting stabbed, because we're literally training your dog to be stabbed and to not let go, which is dumb. And then you, as the single female that weighs about 100 pounds soaking wet, you're going to walk within arm's distance of me, and you're going to pet your dog while it's biting me, and then you're going to grab your dog by the collar, and you're going to tell your dog to come out, and then you're going to try and pull your dog by the choke collar, which we don't use. We use prong collars, but not in a choke fashion. So you're going to choke your dog until it can't breathe, and then you're going to pull your dog off of me. Here's my question. Would you, Mitch or Nathan, want to send your wife to retrieve a dog from a crackhead that has a machete in his hands while your dog is biting the crackhead that still has a machete in his hands and he has already macheted your dog several times? Would you say, would you say, okay, honey, now go walk up to the crackhead that has a machete in his hand and pet your dog while he's biting the bad guy? Or would you rather tell your wife, you send that fucking dog to kill that person, and if he doesn't kill that person, whatever, if he does bite that person into compliance, you recall the dog right back to you, to your side, and that person's going to lay there and fucking bleed until you call whoever and take it further. I would prefer, even me, I'm a pretty tough dude, I would not want to walk up to a crackhead that's being bitten by my dog and pet my dog and be within reach of the crackhead. I would prefer to not be within reach of the bad guy. That's my preference, though.
I mean, that's a great example to give because, you know, I don't even have anything.
Remembered it.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that because it is so, it's so simple. And when you hear it explained like that, there's like light bulbs going off in my head, and I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Why don't we do that? Why isn't every protection dog like that? And I don't know the answer. I'm assuming it's probably because of sport and probably because people that were in the sport have credentials, much like people in the military. If somebody's an admin for fucking Green Berets, right? They get to say, hey, I was attached to special operations. Let's QB.
I have to interrupt. I'm so excited. I was on a deployment and we were very, very active as a team. We had a ton of high level training. We had a ton of real world experience. And on one deployment, we had two guys that came from our, quote, counterterrorism unit that we talked about earlier. They came to our team. They were both, one was equal and one was higher ranking than me. And we were getting ready to do a boarding operation. And these two guys were like, they're in our team now, so they're our team members, but they came from the counterterrorism unit where all they do is train. And we came from the real world unit where We operate and we train. So they're like, don't say my last name on the radio because the drug dealers will hear it and they'll come get us, and make sure you do this. And I'm like, hey, you two, both of you guys, calm the fuck down. And they were like, this is literally one of the responses I got from the guy that was higher ranking than me. And he had a funny voice too. He was super tough. He looked like me, but he was super, super tough guy, right? So he goes, Pat, I want you to know that I had the fastest time in the shoot house when I was at the counterterrorism unit. And I was like,
God.
And that's what he said. So, bro, if I'm lying, may God strike me dead. So that's what he said to me. And so I responded. And honest to God, I'm not saying I'm super duper cool and perfect because I'm far from perfect. But what I told him was, oh, that's weird. Do those targets shoot back at you in a shoot house? And he went, you don't understand. And I said, so they don't, do they? And so he continued to get paid more than me. And I continued to get paid less than him. And everybody did the job. And it was great.
Isn't it funny how people, for starters, I don't want to dig too deep into it again, but one thing that frustrates the ever-living fuck out of me is that people in the military injects them with confidence and shit that most of the time they have no business being confident in. And what ends up happening is people leave the military and they start some fringe stupid training group, and they were fucking a water purification specialist that didn't actually put time and effort into training, that did one CQB course in basic training, and now all of a sudden they're a CQB expert with military experience and training, and you can come to their class for $450 and learn all of the wrong ways to clear a room.
Yeah.
But and that's not to say that people that aren't fucking tier 1 high speed badasses can come out and do the same thing, because there's a lot of people that do the job very well that aren't good instructors. And that's not to say as well that people that weren't that job can't learn how to do it and then become great instructors. It is simply to say the military does a great job of installing confidence into people and shit that they have no business being confident in. And what ends up happening is it's like a fucking butterfly effect. That one person has this one experience and people blindly trust it. And then he spreads this bullshit philosophy idea based off of nothing, no experience, no anything. And then you have a bunch of people running around doing the wrong thing that will get them killed. And I imagine in the dog world, it must be similar when you have a world champion dog trainer who bites up on the high bicep and all of his dogs get perfect scores or however they rank it. And now he's going to start a protection dog training program thing. And he's teaching the same ways that apply to sport that are not practical, but people don't necessarily know. Like myself, I didn't know better. I don't know better. I researched religiously until I came across somebody where I'm like, holy shit, this is it. This makes sense. This makes sense to my brain for what I want. But there's people that might not do that, that are like, oh, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I want my dog to bite high up on the bicep using all of its teeth and hold the fuck on? Why wouldn't I want that?
Right. And I get their rationale, which it's an attempt. And I agree. It's not useless as a defense mechanism, right? If I had a gun that had 4 bullets in it, it's not useless, but it's not a gun with 100 bullets in it, right? So I'm not going to tell people your dog is a complete fucking waste of life. I'm not going to say that, but what I am going to say is if you're training with what 99% of the dog world tells you is correct, you are severely limiting that dog's capability, and you are severely trusting in something that is not the whole story.
And one thing that I do want to focus on too, and give you a chance to clarify with a lot of people too. This is something I remember when I first picked up Athena and I was talking with Nathan. Nathan, I think you were a little bit skeptical on like if the dog was allowed to have fun and if the dog was allowed.
I wasn't quite sure of the concept of the protection dog at that point. I get it more now. I don't think we'd ever use the word protection dog. I was thinking of her more like a service animal. You hadn't really elaborated on what her duties were. And now it makes a lot more sense.
Yes. she, like any other dog, gets tons of love, tons of cuddles, tons of pets, tons of walks, tons of playtime. But playtime is also a way that I use to focus on things that I want to work on and to also reinforce basic obedience. So one of the things that I've been working on recently with Athena is off-leash training and long recalls. And because she has that good basic level of obedience to where, okay, he says don't do this, so I'm not going to do it. And obviously the prong collar and having the lead on makes, it easier to let that happen. But when it came to training her off leash, because that foundation was there, I was able to very easily correct her when I would do long recalls. She would sprint because she's fucking excited. She gets to all out sprint,
Yep.
like this is great. She loves it. We started, I think, like 10 meters and 20, and eventually we got probably 100, 150 of her laying in a plutz, ignoring anything around her, and just being there waiting for me to tell her to come to me. And the first couple times she would just sprint right on past me, be jumping around happy, super happy. And I messed up the first time doing it. You're gonna have thoughts about this. The first time it happened, I forgot we were doing training. I'm like, oh my God, let's have fun. And then I'm like, wait a fucking minute. No, this is not what I want. And I thought of a situation where if I had to put her in a plutz, which is, laying down essentially, and I had to call her and there was traffic, or if there was, people around, I don't want her just running around, jumping around, having a good time. When I call her, I want her at my side. That's where I want her. So after that first time, it snapped on me. I'm like, nope, not going to reinforce this. We're going to do it again. And we're going to do it. I think we did it 5 times. I think we did it 5 more times. And then obviously more days and more days. But I called her. She started to do that. She didn't have her lead on. I practice it with the lead on and off the lead, just because Joel did teach me that if she starts to, take off past you, you can kind of step on the lead and that'll get her. But I wanted to get it to where I wouldn't even have to need that threat with her. I don't even know what I call it, a threat of a correction. Yeah. Yeah. So
Who that? Get up there.
Really quick, it was just my voice. My voice was enough. She did it once and I was like, phooey that. Oh, I'm sorry, girl. It's okay. I was like, phooey that.
What does that mean? Because I hear all the dog talk and I don't know, plutz and
plutz is lay down. Phooey is German for kind of shame on you, like you're doing the wrong thing.
Yep.
It's like saying no.
So I yelled that, and then I said foos, and she immediately it was like oh shit. She just snapped, perked up right at my side, and very serious, like it's over. So we did that a couple times, and now it's to the point where she still gets to sprint across the field to me, but she almost stops and skids at my side.
Yep,
I'm trying to get it to where she doesn't. I want her to not skid. I kind of want her to slow down and have it be a little smoother, but that's just finesse.
We can talk about that after the call. I have an answer for that that's so fast and funny that you're going to be like, holy shit.
That's how most of these things are with you. I called you the other day about a very simple problem, and then you said it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I'm not fucking. But
well, you said you'd let me respond, so I have some things written down here. I don't want to forget. So number one, yes, and this. So let me turn the table on the people that are dog haters, or service dog haters, or protection dog haters. How dare you? When we say that our dogs, our fortress dogs, when we say that they live under obedience, people are like, oh, how dare you? That poor dog. So my response to that is, like you said, they get all the fucking love in the world. And I turn the tables now, and people go, oh shit, maybe I'm wrong. And that's one of my favorite things to do with perspective in life. If I were a superhero, I would like to be Perspective Man. So I tell people, I give my dog treats because I love them. You probably give your dog treats and you make them perform like a fucking circus animal. And they're like, what? And I go, yeah, I have a bag of treats And whenever I feel like it, I just give treats to my dog and I pet her and I love her and we cuddle and we hug and she eats all the treats that I feel like giving her and she just gets them because I love her. And I'm like, what do you do when you give your dog a treat? They're like, well, sit, stay, stand up, pet my paw, roll over, and then I give them a treat. And I'm like, wow, you're a monster. So yes, our dogs get treats. They get love. They get playtime. But it's playtime under obedience. And my next thought is I will bring it back a little bit into kind of anarchy and government and all those things. So a lot of people ask me about that, and people in my circles will say, they'll mention my thoughts about government or anarchy or lack of government or whatever, hierarchy, bureaucracy. So someone once asked me, is owning a dog and demanding that a dog does something for you, is that like a violation of what you would call the non-aggression principle or, self-ownership or whatever? And it took me a minute to kind of figure it out, but I bet you if I could explain it to a person individually, if they're calm and relaxed and we're talking like humans, my response would be, well, if you step on an ant, you probably don't lose much sleep. And if you eat chicken breast from the store, you probably don't cry every time you do it. Why? Those chickens are in terrible fucking condition, and their only purpose in life is that they're born, they live in a cage, they poop out some eggs, and then you eat them and they're murdered, and that's the end of their life. Why are you not crying about that, but you're crying about my very happy dog over here that loves me? So the common denominator there is they don't have human rights because they're not humans. First of all, that's my first response. My next response, which is slightly more involved and I hope a little more intelligent, which is why it's okay if you're teaching another adult and you say, hey, put triangle A into circle A, and that's the answer, and they don't do it, why don't we haul off and slap that other adult? It's wildly inappropriate, right? But if your 3-year-old reaches for a light socket and he wants to shove a fork into it, I would hope that most rational parents would slap that fucking fork out of their hand, or if they can't reach, hopefully they slap that fucking kid hard enough on the head that he drops that fork before he kills himself. What am I getting to here? Well, dogs don't speak English as much as you would like to believe that they do. So if your dog goes to run out into the street, dogs don't worry about cars that are about to run them over and kill them. And not only them dying, but your dog running into the street and a driver swerving and killing himself because of your dog is also a threat. So it's not just the damage to your dog, it's the damage to innocent people involved. So because you can't tell a dog, listen, you probably shouldn't run out into the street because you might die or somebody else might die. You can say that all you want, but your dog's not going to understand you. They don't speak English. They don't rationalize like an adult human. So because of that, we lead them and we give them the best life that we can give them, but they also work for us and don't get a free ride. A working dog, at least. If you have a couch potato dog, that's great. I support you. You should continue doing that. But dogs aren't humans and humans aren't dogs. So that's some of the rationale behind why we train our dogs and why they have obedience and why our specific working dogs live under obedience, because I don't want my dog to bite the wrong person. And my dog does work for me. They do provide a service for me, but they also get tons of love and tons of free time. So thank you for attending my TED Talk.
Yes. I want to emphasize the free time, especially Athena. I don't do a lot in my life right now. Mm-hmm. I am very much more at home and around the house than I am anything else. And I think I told you about it when I first had her. I was like, I wonder if I'm going to let her roam the house or not. And I was like, well, try it. And what ended up happening, I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before, but I think I was talking to you about it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, she wants direction and she wants a purpose. I sat on the couch. We walked in. I didn't tell her anything. And she just went and she just stand in the middle of my living room. She just stood there. Just looking at me. She had her place right here.
Yeah.
She had her food over there. And then she has another place in the bedroom. Didn't go to any of them. She watched me sit on the couch and she just stared at me. And we did that for, I don't know how long, but we did it for over like 20, 30 minutes. And she didn't lay down. She didn't sit She stood there and just stared at me. And we kept like making eye contact, and I was just waiting to see what she would do. She didn't do anything. So finally, I was like, oh, all right, Athena, place. And you're in your place, girl. I know. You're okay, girl. And she went over to her place. She kind of did that little dog smile. I gave her some love, and that was that. I was like, okay, she's not going to roam. She doesn't like it. I don't like it. So we're just done. Easy. And it's very simple. She wants direction. She wants purpose. She wants something to do. And I can't always be with her outside to do things with her. While we do get out there a lot, very often during the day, I can't always all day be out doing stuff with her. So even something as simple as, hey, this is your place. I feel like for her, that's all the direction she needs. She's like, okay, my job is to be right here. My job is to not move. I can move around in my place, but I can't leave my place. I'm going to stay here. Easy, simple. And even putting her on like kind of like a box. I have a tough box. I'll put her on that. Like, oh, seats, wait. I'm so sorry, girl. I'm so sorry, girl.
I love how she's just reacting to everything you're doing.
You should see what it's like editing video, where I loop those phrases over and over every time I scroll back and add video and audio. She gets really confused. So Arrow, actually, her crate is right under my work desk. So when I edit videos, she gets real confused and she looks at me and she's like, she'll look at me and she'll go, fuck this, I'm out. So she goes into her crate just to ignore me when I'm editing video of her.
It's smart. I haven't gotten it to where Athena likes her. I mean, likes it. I mean, she won't just voluntarily go into it. The door's always open. She much prefers being on the couch, in her spot on the couch. But whenever she goes into it, there's no problem. We did. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to keep talking about stuff that you and I already talked about. I could talk all day about it.
I don't care.
You recently, transitioning onto that, you recently published, well, didn't publish yet. It's not out yet.
It'll be out by the time this airs.
Yeah, it will be.
In 2 days.
Yep. This is your second book. First one was great. It was about lockpicking. We didn't even touch on lockpicking, and that's like...
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, we didn't even touch... That's all right.
That's
I
a
have a
super
podcast
important
about that.
skill that I really want to learn a lot more of.
Pat does a lot of things, and we covered on like 50% of them, I feel. Probably not even that. But he also writes books about things and stuff and his thoughts, and he's very well spoken, and he's coming out with another book called Fuck Bureaucracy. You want to tell us about that?
The cover's all right-ish.
Nathan did the cover for those of you who can't see.
It's okay. I think it's very derivative. I honestly think it kind of sucks. The line work is terrible. Whatever kind of an artist who did that is fucking hack.
Nathan, so Instagram at Nathan Illustration did a fantastic job on my cover work. It is literally better than I imagined it could be.
That's very kind of you. But I paid a 12-year-old Chinese sweatshop worker to do it. So the compliment has to go to them.
Well, then you are using what's called your what do they call that?
It's called capitalism.
What do
Your
they call that in
heritage.
the military when you have someone else do your work for you?
Voluntelling.
No. It's a D. Selecting and directing. What is it?
Delegate.
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 Yeah.
NCO
I should know
words.
that. That's a bureaucratic word.
Yes, but in all seriousness, I'm very glad you like it.
I fucking love it, dude. So it's designed for several purposes, but one of them is to be an easy read. So it's not very long. It is only 69 pages.
Perfect.
And you're supposed to say, nice.
Was that on purpose? Did you do that on purpose?
Does that sound like something I would do on purpose?
Yes, it does.
Yes. My editor was actually really sweet. She's a really sweet lady. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to tell her this. I have to. I'm like, she's really nice. And she seems kind of like a sweet old lady. She's not old, but a sweet lady. And I'm like, hey, editor lady, can you make the last page like not 68, but like a 6 and then the 9, that number? She's like, yeah, 69. Got it. And I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh God, does she get it or not? So I messaged her. I'm like, listen, I know my audience. Trust me, 69 pages is a good number. It's not long at all.
Nice.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, so it is basically, it's not a big deal, really. It's just a book. It's basically my entire life's work since I was a kid. All the problems I've seen with the world summed up in 69 pages. But it really, honestly, so a lot of the stuff I talked about tonight. So we talked a little bit about anarchy, a little bit about kind of human rights, some dog training, some protection. But everything that I say is out of love for people, for animals. I really do want to be happy. I want other people to be happy. And especially when I talk to people in the military or first responder world, or especially the police world, it's not that I want criminals to run free. It's that I want the opposite. I really do want justice. I really do want criminals to be held accountable. I really do want victims to be made whole. And I also want people that haven't victimized anybody to be left the fuck alone, which is precisely why I have a problem with bureaucracy and, largely a problem with government. So this book was kind of a thesis. It's meant to be a little bit malleable. It could be used for multiple purposes. So one of those is the reason that it's a 2-part book. So part 1, which is really short, is basically my thesis for defining what a bureaucracy is and listing about 10 patterns. There's more than that, but in the book I put 10 different patterns that will always exist in every bureaucracy. Every bureaucracy. That's my thesis. The second part of the book, which is only like 10 more pages, is unbrainwashing people to some of the lies that they've been told their whole fucking lives. And this is specifically geared towards the people that want to leave a bureaucracy because they're not fucking happy. One of those is, you guys ever listen? It's okay, you can be honest. You ever listen to Appalachian Agorist? They used to be Liberty Minded Medics on a podcast.
I've never heard
Super
of
cool dude. Met him in real life, just as cool in real life, which is a big compliment in 2021. People acting the same in real life as they do on the internet. So he calls me one day, and he is chapter 11 in this book. He calls me one day, and I've been talking with him for a while, and he's like, he's just not happy at his firefighter job. And he's like, I'm thinking about leaving the firefighter job. And he told me, I love firefighting. I hate the fucking bureaucracy that I work under, and the leadership and the fucking policy and the regulations. And he's like, he's like, I want to do better at firefighting, and my bosses won't let me. And that's probably something a lot of people can associate with. So he tells me he's still a firefighter, and he's looking for another job to transition to. So he meets with a small company that does basically manual labor. And he meets with the owner of this company that only has 5 employees. And he meets with that owner, and he's like, and the owner says, yeah, I'll pay you more per hour than you make as a firefighter. He's like, you'll work less hours, but I'll pay you more per hour. So it's almost an even keel, right? So he can quit, have more free time, but make about the same amount of money. Holy shit, dude. You know what you can do with that if you work less and make the same amount of money? That is fucking life-changing for so many people. And I like to change lives for the positive. That is, honest to God, if you hear nothing else in this fucking podcast, I want to help you change your life for the better. So he takes this interview, and he's talking with the owner of this tiny company. And he's like, hey, I'm kind of worried about my benefits. What kind of healthcare do you guys offer? And so he doesn't have to sit in an HR office. Like, he doesn't have to fill out a form. The owner of this little company just goes, oh, let me open my laptop and pull up the plan for you. So the owner opens the laptop and shows Cody from Appalachian Agorist, and he goes, oh, this is our plan. You can take a look. Here you go. And Cody goes, huh. He goes, that's not, quote, like my firefighter plan. He said, that's exactly the plan that my fire department gives me. And he's like, those motherfuckers have been telling me for years I would be stupid to leave the fire department because, quote, think of the benefits and the health care. And he calls me on the phone and he goes, Pat, what the fuck else have they been lying to me about? And I said, bro, basically fucking everything. So
yeah, literally everything.
Literally everything. Why on earth would your employer want to tell you you're special, You're capable. I support your passion. You should be growing your business on the side so that you no longer need us for a paycheck. Which employer is going to tell you that? Probably zero. So I actually have an apprentice right now that I give a little bit of money to every month to do some tasks for me. And I have told him, and I've said it on my podcast to the whole world, I want them to know. I've had conversations with him where I said, Bubbers is what his call sign. I say, Bubbers, you're learning how to do these things for me. And my goal is that one day you get good enough at these things and I teach you all of my skills and you manage all of my logistics as much as you can handle so that one day you can fucking walk away from me and start your own business and compete with me. That is what I actually want in my heart. I want you to go, Pat, thanks for everything. I'm now leaving you and doing my own thing. Good luck. I'd be happy to collaborate, but you're technically now my competition. That's what I want. And I've told him that very clearly. And he's like, dude, I love it. I just want to help. He's like, maybe there will be time for that. Maybe not. But my job is not to go, all right, Bubbers, do this, do that. No, I'm not going to teach you how to do this. No, I don't have time for you. That's terrible. Who the fuck would want to treat another human like that? So I actually told him, I made him stop doing work for me for the last month or two. He did a little bit here and there, but I told him, bro, here is your next task that I'm paying you for. Go teach your own lockpicking course, pick a date, pick a location, promote it, and I will help you. I'll give you the tools, I'll promote it, but you need to go teach your own fucking course. And you need to do more of that every year that we work together so that one day you don't need me anymore. Sorry for that being kind of roundabout, but that's the purpose of this fucking book. I want to support people. So many people, think of a percentage. You pick, right? I don't know. You pick. How many people do you know at your corporate fucking bureaucratic job are fucking miserable 5 days a week?
My current corporate job is the military, and probably 90%.
That counts. Say the percent again.
Probably 99.9. Nobody's happy coming to work except for
nobody's fucking happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this book is for.
I think I haven't read it yet. You sent me a digital copy. I already told you I'm more of a paperback guy, and I'm going to order it in 2 days.
Okay.
When it comes to what this book is going to be, and hearing you describe it, having heard your thoughts before on Bureaucracy, having gotten to sat down and pick your mind over some pizza in Florida, I think it's going to make a lot of people angry at first, and then they will reflect on it, and they will be, I don't want to say still angry, but that anger might be not directed at you anymore. I, for example, I remember we talked about it in the beginning. I'm going to talk about it one more time. I remember the first time I listened to your podcast about what makes a government a government. I had listened to your stuff before, just, from the tactical perspective, because you talked about, how to actually pick out gear and put it through something. Gloves, for example. Gloves.
That's one of my... Dude, that's another one of my biggest episodes ever. People, for some weird reason, people fucking love it.
Yeah, well, you have a very logical approach to things, and when you say things, you simplify them in a way that makes retards like me be like, yeah, no shit, that makes sense. But even picking gear, your process for that. Very simple, very logical. You don't just say, yeah, go spend $500 on all this shit and then, pick one and run it. You have a very logical approach to things. I'm not gonna go into that because you did a whole podcast on it. It was great. I highly encourage you to go listen to it. But I had listened to these episodes before. I listened to your other episodes before, and then that one popped up for me. And you did it with Matt from Status Quo, who I still have never talked to, and I would love to talk to.
Oh my gosh, such a cool dude.
Great guy. I can't say that from personal experience. Great guy from listening to his podcast and him on your podcast. Awesome person. A lot of rich history too. He's a very decorated man with this history and what he has been through and what he's done, and has such a unique perspective. I love hearing about it. But anyways, I heard that episode, What Makes a Government a Government. I heard it, I listened to it, and I was like, this is fucking stupid. But then I was like, I sat there and I remember thinking about this while I was listening to it. I listened to it over a span of like 2 days because it was a little bit on the longer side. So I had enough time to digest and think about it. And I would literally be on base driving to work, thinking about it, going to my job in the military. And I'm like, this is dumb. And I would go to work angry. I'd be fucking mad. I'm like, he brought up all these points. And the problem is I'm not smart enough to dispute them.
My God.
And I remember thinking, there's somebody smarter out there who can easily come on this podcast and just destroy everything he's saying. But I can't do it because I'm not smart enough to. It's fine. I finish it over the span of like 2 or 3 days.
She thinks I'm crying right now because I'm laughing so hard.
Oh.
Good dog.
She's perfect.
She is. Athena, you're perfect too. Don't worry.
Good job. Come on up.
So I had listened. I went to work angry a couple times after listening to it, and angry at you. I was like, this is somebody that I really enjoyed listening to. This is somebody whose gear, blah, blah, blah. And I started to like rationalize this stuff in my head. And then I'm like, I started to think about it. And then I'm like, man, I'm mad at myself a little bit. And then it was like, man, I'm mad at a lot of things. And then I was like, well, I don't really have a reason to be mad anymore, but holy shit, a lot of this is really fucking stupid. And you put it, I can't exaggerate.
I don't even know what I said in that episode. I don't ever go back and listen, ever. I edit and I proof and it's gone.
Well, that's the thing about you, though. About you as a person, you have such a great way of explaining things that might seem complicated in the simplest forms that it's almost indisputable the way that you talk about things sometimes. And I'm not saying that like everything you say is fucking perfect, because obviously we're
far from it. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you want to explain something, and when
we should have opened with this, you fucking asshole.
It's fine. They'll get to it. People actually enjoy the interview. Look forward to drunk Nathan, but now they get drunk Pat.
I'm
vibing.
Oh my God, did you drink that entire thing?
Most of it, you idiots.
Oh my God.
Jesus. The point being, I love that. The point being, though, you should go in and listen to that episode with a very open mind. I suggest doing what I did and listening to it in parts and thinking about each part. I probably re-listened to it a couple times because I have to go through and kind of reflect on some things and think about things and add, my own perspective to some things that you and that are saying. But that episode was so impactful that it really changed my perspective on a lot of different things. And it enabled me to start thinking about these things more. And when you start thinking about these things and you break it down into the very simple concepts that you do and apply that to just what you're doing, it all starts to kind of make sense. And then it's a fucking snowball effect. So really, that's my plug for you, Pat, at the end of the episode. Go check out that episode if you have any question, maybe as an introduction to reading your book. I don't know. I haven't read your book yet, but it might be a good introduction. Go check out that episode. I'm going to make sure that it's linked in the description. With that being said, Pat, it was great having you on. Great friend, great conversation. Thank you for hosting this podcast recording.
Hey, I'm Pat, and today I'll be hosting the Seaburn podcast.
Yeah, sorry I've been so quiet this episode, guys. Like, I've been kind of similar with the end of Orion. I've been taking it in. I'm really enjoying this. And I know absolutely fuck all about training dogs. Like, I had a terrier growing up, and he was pretty cool, I guess. But I'm just taking it in. It's interesting. I didn't know most of the stuff you guys talked about.
Yeah, one thing before we let Pat talk about himself. Operation Doggo Drop. I want to talk about that too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
great.
yes.
I liked that episode a lot.
That's really surprising. We had to record it twice. I'm comfortable with saying this because we talked to Rob, the owner, and he even messaged us afterwards. He's like, "Hey, I don't think that was really good, was it?" And we were like, "Yeah, we didn't want to say it, but."
No, I mean that. I like that episode a lot.
Yeah, it's we talked about that a little bit too off the air. What Rob's doing over there is great. He's working directly with Fortress Canine. He's working directly with Joel, right? It's not you. It's not your franchise.
I talked to him on the phone to get him in touch with Joel. I kind of got him started. So I did speak with him. Cool dude.
Yeah, it was a whole connection thing. It started with you being an affiliate that got me $2,000 off Athena, which was great.
Yeah, I do. Sorry for a shameless plug, but if you do really want a Fortress dog, please email me, pat@utac.io. We'll get you a discount for a protection dog.
Boom, look at that. So I got my dog there, and I remember I was talking to Rob about it, and then Rob was like, well, I want to do this thing for people because it seems like it's something that's really beneficial for you. And I'm like, it's great for me.
It gave me my life back, dude.
Yeah. Athena has for me too. I can go out in public with my wife and my daughter now, especially with my daughter. I was just imagining.
Yeah, how is that?
Man, it's great. It is so great. We go for walks in all these different parks. We bring her up in the mountains sometimes.
How does the dog do with your daughter?
It is great. What I did, so the first night when my daughter was born, I came home from the hospital. My wife stayed overnight with my daughter. I came home from the hospital, grabbed Athena from a friend where she was just essentially just in the kennel. There's nobody, I didn't trust anybody to properly handle her. And I brought a sock that my daughter had wore. And I just kind of held it up to her. I let her sniff it. She ended up tearing the sock up, which is fine. I expected it because I gave it to her and I put it in her place. And she knows that she doesn't really get like her toys. She has a couple toys, nothing crazy, just like some chew toys. She doesn't get them in her place, so I wasn't mad about it. I gave her the sock. I'm like, do whatever you want with it. Get used to the smell, whatever. So I did that, and then we brought her home. She was very curious, as I expected, and that's fine. I was very happy that she was curious. And they had a moment last week. I wish I got it on camera, but I don't always have my camera out to capture these special moments between, my family. But they had moments. So the first couple months we would put my daughter in like the swing or a chair. We'd let Athena come over, kind of like sniff her, lick her feet if she wants to. She always goes for the diaper. She's smelling the diaper. I don't know what it
Loves
is.
it.
But
loves the poop.
I don't know what it is. But
loves the butthole.
Was super gentle. She understands she has to be gentle. She understands like delicate, like you can't like, because with her babies, I see dogs, they kind of like gently, like kind of not bite them, but gently like kind of move them around with their mouth and stuff because they don't have fucking thumbs like we do. Or do they have thumbs?
Are you asking if dogs have thumbs?
I don't know. They have fingers. I don't want to sound fucking stupid, but anyways, so like a week ago, they had this moment. I was holding my daughter. She was kind of like sitting up, like facing out, and that's right next to Athena's place. And my daughter is still kind of like figuring out the world around her. Like she realizes that she has feet and she moves her feet and she's like mind blown that she can move her own feet. It's crazy. But she's like becoming more aware of her world around her. And for like the first time, she like deliberately looked at Athena, and Athena immediately snapped her head and like stared at her. And like my daughter like kind of like reached out and started to like smile and giggle. And you could just see Athena light up, tail wagging, kind of like, I don't know if Arrow does it, but like Athena will like, because she's in her place and she's supposed to be laying down, her like front chest will be laying down, but she'll stick her butt in the air and like wag her tail.
Yep.
It was a beautiful moment. And in public, she'll check on her. This is one of, never trained her to do this. I don't know if you guys train her to do this, but she'll be in, because Athena can't look into the carriage. She can't look into it unless she like kind of hops up a little bit. So we'll be on a walk, and anytime we'll like, stop, maybe take a picture or look at something or just whatever. Athena will kind of like gently kind of like hop up, look at her, be like, okay, she's good. And then
oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
It's outstanding. I'm tearing up thinking about it. It is outstanding.
I cried on my last fucking episode too. Let's not do that.
Yeah, it was outstanding. It's outstanding what she's able to do. She's life-changing, and I am very, very, very happy to have been such a small part of what Rob's doing, because he's doing something for somebody else. And I know how much of an impact my dog has had on me. You know how much of an impact your dog has had on you. And to do that for somebody else is just, it's great. And I'm super, super happy and thankful to kind of be a very small part of that. And you should definitely go check out Operation Doggo Drop and change somebody's life.
I agree.
Pat, show yourself, talk about yourself. Kind of a somber transition.
Well, now that I'm not being forced to open my ideology up to the world against my will, you guys are super cool dudes, both of you. I love the fucking podcast.
Thank you, man.
Also, I didn't know what a simp was before you guys talked about it on your show, and I don't think I'm that. Me and Ashley, like we're a thing. Yeah. Look, I'm gonna come out right out and say it. I don't think there's anything wrong with following a hot chick that has guns on Instagram. You motherfuckers. I will gladly openly tell the world I follow hot chicks with guns on Instagram. You dicks.
Nothing wrong with it. Ashley
There's nothing
Maddox,
wrong with that.
An absolute legend, a sweetheart. She is a sweetheart. She is a sweetheart.
I owe you one story about pizza. Wait, pizza or nightmares? I forget. Yeah, nightmares and pizza together.
Yes.
But if I can do you guys have like an after show? You should think about it.
An after show.
Yeah.
We don't have an after show.
Okay.
I think too many people click off. We see our analytics, they click off when they start to hear the music.
All right, well, don't turn the music on yet. Okay. Honestly, I'm fucking completely honored. You guys are super cool dudes, and I love that you're doing something different that apparently no one else is doing. And I think that you're trying to fucking help people too, and that's a big deal to me. So I'll keep it super short. If you want to go to my website, that's the easiest way. It's like basically home base. And the shortcut is utac.io, utac.io. That's my website, that's a shortcut. Or you can just type in uncensoredtactical.com. If you want some canine training, I can train you in person outside of Houston, or I do Zoom lessons. And surprisingly, even Joel, my franchisor, he was like, hey, how's the video training going? And every single one of my clients is super fucking excited to schedule our next session. So I have never had one client go, hey, let's do a Zoom session with dog training at, distance learning, and then go, it's not for me. Every single one of my clients is a repeat client. So I can do that for you, but we have to work within the Fortress Canine philosophy, which I love. Next, I do have a book that should be launched by the time this comes out. It's called Fuck Bureaucracy. The digital version should be available on most places, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, whatever. But the biggest way to help me, and honestly, I think this belongs on a bookshelf, is to go to my website. It's utac.io and just click on Gear Store. Or if you just go to the drop-down menu and click Book, it should take you there. Or Gear Store, it should take you there. And we never even fucking talked about it, but my main source of income right now is that I teach people how to break into shit. So I teach in-person courses. I have a pre-recorded video course that's it's half uploaded to the internet. It's taking a long time, but it's very high quality. It's multiple camera angles, high definition video. It is basically my in-person course, but in video form for people that can't make it out to an in-person course. That's how to break into padlocks and door locks and vehicles and how to break out of restraints. It's really cool stuff, and I'm very passionate about it. And as far as I know, I give my students a real emergency skill set that they can use in the real world when time is a factor. Whether you have super big muscles or not, you can use lockpicking to get in and out of all sorts of obstacles. So I sell some lockpicking tools on my Gear web store. And the easiest way to find that is go to my homepage and just click on Gear Store from there. I hope that wasn't too long.
No, you could take more time if you want. I do want to clarify, he's not implying that he uses these skills to break in and steal people's shit. It is just a very useful skill.
The word break in really is a euphemism. I actually do put quite a lot of emphasis on doing what is morally right. So the first two steps of every lockpicking entry is, how fast do I have to get in? And do I really have the moral right to make this entry? And that's moral is different than legal, and I think much more important than legal.
To give a real world example, I had a very cheap safe from Amazon that I got, and the battery died on it. and I couldn't get it open, and there were important documents in there. I've since learned, and I've gotten a actual non-cheap safe. What I had to do, I think I told you about it, I pulled your book out, and I just started to go in, and I used your book, and I ended up using a pen cap. Shaved down a pen, and I got into the safe that way, and I was able to get those important documents out. So it is useful to have on you. I highly recommend that book as well, even if you can't make it out there and take a class or, get the book. It's a great reference. I keep it on my bookshelf because situations like that where you don't think you need it until you buy a shitty $30 Amazon safe and then you can't get into it, and in order to change the battery on it, you have to get into it because that's a really shitty design flaw. But shaved down a pen cap, and I managed to get into it with the help of your book. Check all that out. We're going to include links to all this in the description below.
I really want to get that book. That is a good idea.
Which one?
Lockpicking. I've been noodling around with it for a little while. I got a little kit off Sparrow I've had for a couple of years.
You should get it. Great resource.
Yeah, no, I'm probably going to do that.
Sponsors of the show. If you made it this far, I don't know how long we've been recording because we're on multiple different things, but AWS, they make great battle belts. They make great gear in general. I've run their battle belt for a couple of years now. They also have a plate carrier that Nathan runs.
Yes, I really like mine.
Yep, it replaced my second plate carrier. Did not replace Spiritus is my main plate carrier. AWS replaced my second one, which is a JPC. It's not better than my Spiritus in my opinion, but it is a great plate carrier nonetheless, and Nathan runs it too. I think it comes down to preference. Use code ARTandWAR10 to save $10 off their SMU belt. Pat, as a guest of the show, you get a free belt. It's part of our deal there, so
Shut up,
you get hooked up there.
Excuse me.
Yep. You get a free belt. We'll hash it out after. And then Applied Gear, everyday carry belts. Use code ARTandWAR5 to save $5 off there. Nathan wears his belt all the time because
I do. I'm wearing it right now, actually.
Yeah, because he's an everyday carry type of guy.
I'm carrying nothing with it. I'm just really lazy and it's comfortable.
Easy enough. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Be sure to check out Pat Watson, Uncensored Technical. Check out Fuck Bureaucracy, a book that is out now. It is not out at this moment that we're recording, but it is out the moment that it is released. And by the time you're listening to this, the link will be in our description. We will also have a swipe up for that when it comes out because we like supporting our friends, and Pat is a great friend. Thanks for coming on, and bye.